Anna, I think we got everything we need.
Yes! Let's go have some fun! This is nice. A perfect way to end the day.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of English Over Tea, Listen and Speak. I'm Anna, your host, and I've got my Earl Grey right here, steaming and ready to go. How's it going, Dan?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, Anna. I've got a very large, very necessary mug of black coffee today because, man, I had a rough morning with some, let's call it grammar drama.
Grammar drama? That sounds serious. What happened? Did you get into a fight with a semicolon?
I wish. No, it was a text message, a group chat, actually. You know how dangerous those could be. My sister, who, by the way, loves to point out every little mistake I make, she absolutely roasted me.
Oh no, what did you write?
Okay, so we're planning this surprise party for my cousin, right? And I typed out, wait, whose house are we going to again? But I spelled whose as W-H-O-apostrophe-S.
The classic apostrophe trap.
Exactly. And she immediately messaged back in the main group chat, mind you, and said, Dan, unless our cousin is actually a house, you mean whose, W-H-O-S-E. Everyone started sending those laughing emojis. I just wanted to crawl under my desk and stay there.
Oh, Dan, don't feel too bad. Honestly, that is probably one of the top 5 most common mistakes in the English language. Even native speakers, people who have spoken English their entire lives, get whose and whose mixed up all the time.
That actually makes me feel a lot better. But still, it's so confusing. They sound exactly the same. Like, if I just say them out loud right now, whose, see, identical.
You're right. They're what we call homophones. They sound the same, but the spelling and the meaning are totally different. And that's exactly what we're going to clear up today. We're going to help our listeners, and you, Dan, never get roasted in a group chat again.
Please, I need this. My ego needs this. So where do we even start?
Well, let's start with the one that tripped you up. Who's with the apostrophe? W-H-O-apostrophe-S. The most important thing to remember is that this word is a contraction.
A contraction. Okay, so like don't or can't, right? 2 words smashed together?
Exactly. It's a shortcut. Whose is a shortcut for 2 different combinations. Who is or who has.
Wait, who has 2? I thought it was just who is.
Nope, it covers both. For example, if you ask, who's at the door, you're really asking, who is at the door? Or if you're at a party and you want to know who brought the snacks, you might say, who's seen the chips? Which means, who has seen the chips?
Okay, that makes sense. So the apostrophe is like, it's like a little placeholder for the missing letters.
Precisely. It's a little marker saying, hey, some letters are missing here. In who is, the I is gone. In who has, the H and A are gone.
Got it. So if I can say the full words who is or who has in a sentence, then I should definitely use the one with the apostrophe.
That is the golden rule, Dan. We call it the replacement test. If you can replace that whose with who is or who has, and the sentence still sounds correct, then the apostrophe is your friend.
Let me try one. Who's hungry? If I test it, who is hungry? Yeah, that works. So that's W-H-O-apostrophe-S.
Perfect. You got it. How about this one? Who's been eating my leftovers?
Oh, that sounds like a question for my roommate. Let's see. Who is been eating? No, that's weird. Who has been eating my leftovers? Yes, that works. So it's still the apostrophe version.
Exactly. See? You're already a pro. But here is why it gets tricky and why your sister was able to catch you. People see that apostrophe S and their brain immediately thinks possession.
Right, like Dan's coffee or Anna's tea. The apostrophe S shows that the coffee belongs to me.
Right. But, and this is a big but, pronouns in English are, well, they're a bit rebellious. They don't follow that rule. Words like his, hers, theirs, and its show possession without an apostrophe. And whose, W-H-O-S-E, is one of those rebellious pronouns.
So because who is a pronoun, it doesn't get the apostrophe S for possession.
Exactly. Whose is the possessive form of who. It's used to ask or talk about who owns something. So in your text message, when you were asking about the house belongs to your cousin. It's his or her house. So you need the possessive version.
Right. Whose house are we going to? If I try the test, who is house are we going to? Yeah, that sounds ridiculous. My sister was right. I was basically asking if a person named who was actually a house.
Who is house? I mean, it's a great name for a building, but maybe not what you meant.
Definitely not. Okay, so W-H-O-apostrophe-S is who is or who has. W-H-O-S-E is for ownership. I think I'm starting to get the rhythm of this.
You're doing great. It's all about pausing for just a second before you hit send or put the pen to paper and asking, am I talking about a person being something, or am I talking about something belonging to a person?
It's that tiny pause that saves you from the emojis. I've learned my lesson.
It really does. And you know, we use whose a lot when we're identifying people too. Like if you're looking at an old photo and you point to someone and ask, who's that?
Who's that? Right, apostrophe S.
Exactly. Or if you're talking about a specific person, like, she's the one who's always late.
She is the one who is always late. Man, that replacement test is like a secret weapon. I feel like I have a superpower now.
It's the most reliable trick in the book. If who is fits, use the apostrophe. If it doesn't, you probably need whose.
Okay, so I think I've got the who is part of the contraction down, but you mentioned whose can also mean who has. That feels like a lot for one little apostrophe to carry. How do I know which one it is?
Honestly, Dan, most of the time you don't even have to think about it. Whether it's who is or who has, it's still spelled W-H-O-apostrophe-S. But if you really want to be a grammar detective, you can look at the word that comes right after it. Usually, if you hear a verb ending in ing, like who's calling, it's who is. If you hear a past participle, you know, those words like been or seen, then it's probably who has.
Oh, like your example earlier, who's seen the chips? That's who has seen the chips, or who's been to the Philippines.
Exactly. If you say, who's been eating my cheese, you're saying, who has been eating my cheese.
Man, I really feel for that person whose cheese was stolen. That's a tragedy. Wait, I just used it. The person whose cheese was stolen. Ownership. W-H-O-S-E.
Look at you. You used it perfectly in a sentence, and you touched on something really important there. Whose is often used to ask about ownership, like whose phone is ringing or whose bag is this. But it also works when you're just connecting a person to something that belongs to them in the middle of a sentence.
Right, like I have a neighbor whose dog barks all night. The dog belongs to the neighbor.
Precisely. Now here's a little secret that confuses even the experts. We usually use who and whose for people, right? But whose, the possessive one, can actually be used for animals, places, and even objects.
Wait, really? So I can talk about a building's roof using whose?
You sure can. You could say, the house whose roof was damaged in the storm needs repairs. It sounds a lot more natural than saying, the house, the roof of which was damaged.
Yeah, that of which sounds like I'm wearing a tuxedo and a monocle. So India is a country whose culture fascinates me is actually correct.
It's totally correct. Even though countries aren't people, we use whose to show that association or relationship. It's like a universal possessive for when you're using who-related words.
Okay, I'm following. So whose is for ownership, whether it's a person, a country, or a house with a leaky roof, and whose is my shortcut for who is or who has.
You've got it. And if you're ever writing and you feel that grammar headache coming on, just remember, possessive pronouns like his, hers, theirs, and its never ever use apostrophes.
That's a huge tip because I think that's why I messed up. I thought, hey, it's a person's house, I need an apostrophe. But since who is a pronoun, it plays by different rules. It's like the its and its thing you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. It's the exact same logic. It's, with the apostrophe, is always it is or it has. It's, without the apostrophe, shows ownership, like the car won't lose its momentum.
Man, English is just full of these little traps, isn't it? It's like a minefield for my text messages.
It can be, but once you see the pattern, it becomes much easier. Think of it this way. The apostrophe is a thief. It steals letters to make words shorter. If the thief hasn't stolen any letters from is or has, then you don't need the apostrophe.
I like that, the apostrophe thief. So in whose shoes are these, nobody's stealing an is. I'm not saying who is shoes are these. So the thief stays home, no apostrophe.
Perfect analogy. And another quick tip for our listeners, if you're listening to someone speak and you aren't sure which one they said, listen for the noun. After whose, you'll almost always hear a noun, like whose books, whose idea, or whose phone.
Oh, that's clever. So if I hear a noun right after the whose sound, it's probably the ownership one. But if I hear a verb ending in ing, it's the contraction.
You're a natural, Dan. Who's going, verb, versus whose phone, noun. It works almost every time.
This is actually making a lot of sense. I'm feeling much more confident. I might even, dare I say, text my sister back today.
Whoa, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still have a few more scenarios to cover. For instance, what about when these words appear in the middle of a sentence, not just at the beginning of a question?
Oh, right. Like, I know a girl who's really good at the guitar.
Exactly. Or, I found a dog whose collar was missing. It's the same rules, but it can feel a bit different when it's not a question.
I see. Let me try one. I found a hat, but I didn't know whose it was.
Spot on. You're asking about ownership, so you use W-H-O-S-E.
This is great. I'm actually starting to enjoy this. I feel like I'm finally winning the battle against the grammar drama.
You definitely are. And you know, there's one more who word that people often throw into this mix, and it's the one that sounds the most, well, fancy.
Oh boy, you're talking about whom, aren't you? My old enemy.
It doesn't have to be your enemy. Whom is actually just the object version of who. But let's save the fancy talk for just a minute. We should probably make sure everyone is 100% comfortable with our whos and whose homophones first.
Good idea. My brain needs a second to process the apostrophe thief before we bring in the whom squad.
Okay, Dan, take a deep breath. We are not going to let whom scare us today. Actually, the easiest way to understand whom is to compare it to the words we already know perfectly. Think about the difference between he and him, or she and her.
Okay, I use those every day. He is the one doing something, and him is the one receiving it?
Exactly. Who is just like he or she. It's the subject doing the action. Whom is like him or her. It's the object. So if you are writing an email and you aren't sure which one to use, try the him test.
The him test. I like the sound of that. How does it work?
It's simple. Try to answer your own question. If the answer is him, then the question should start with whom, because they both end in that M sound. For example, if you're asking, who or whom should I invite? And the answer is, I should invite him, then the correct word is whom.
Oh, him, whom. They both end in M. That is actually a really easy way to remember it. So if I say, whom did you call? The answer is, I called him. It works.
Precisely. But here's the thing for our beginners to remember. In casual, everyday American English, home is becoming pretty rare. If you're at a coffee shop or chatting with friends, almost everyone just uses who for everything. You really only need whom for very formal writing, like those big corporate emails you were worried about.
That's a relief. So I can save my dress shoes grammar for the boss and keep my sneakers grammar for the group chat. But wait, we're getting away from our main stars, whose and whose. We talked about them at the start of sentences, but they show up in the middle a lot too, right?
They do. We call these relative clauses. They're just a way to give more information about someone. Like, I have a friend who's a pilot.
Okay, let me try the test. I have a friend who is a pilot. That works. So it's W-H-O-apostrophe-S.
Correct. Now try this one. I have a friend whose sister is a pilot.
Okay, I have a friend whose sister is a pilot. No. That sounds like the who is house thing again. So it has to be W-H-O-S-E because the sister belongs to the friend.
You're on fire today. And remember what we said about objects? You can even use whose for things that aren't people. You might say, I saw a car whose alarm was going off. It's much smoother than saying the car of which the alarm was going off.
Yeah, nobody says of which unless they're in a history book. But Anna, I have to ask, what about whose when it means who has? I feel like that's the one that trips me up the most because it doesn't sound like is at all.
That's a great point. Whose as who has usually shows up with the word been or another past action. For example, who's been to the Philippines? If you break that down, it's who has been to the Philippines or who's seen my keys.
Who has seen my keys? Okay, so the replacement test still works. I just have to remember that whose has two different identities. It's like a secret agent with two different names.
Exactly. It can be who is or who has, but whose, W-H-O-S-E, is always and only about possession or relationship.
You know, I was thinking about my phone. Sometimes it autocorrects these things and makes it worse.
Oh, don't even get me started on autocorrect. It is notorious for messing up homophones. It sees that apostrophe and thinks you're trying to be fancy, or it misses it entirely. You really can't count on your phone to get it right for you. You have to know the rule yourself.
So whose contraction and whose possessive are like its and its. Its is it is and its is possessive. It's the same pattern. Why did no one tell me this in school?
Well, it's one of those things that seems small but makes a huge difference in how people see your writing. It's like wearing a nice suit but having a giant mustard stain on your tie. People notice the stain.
Yeah, no mustard stains for me. I'm checking every whoosie from now on. So, what about the phrase who's who? I hear people say that all the time. Like, I don't know who's who at this party.
That's a classic expression, and if you look at the grammar, it's actually a contraction. Who is who? You're trying to figure out which person is which person, so it's W-H-O-S apostrophe.
Who is who? Got it. And what about whose fault is it?
Well, think about the test. Who is fault is it?
Nope, doesn't work. So it's W-H-O-S-E. The fault belongs to someone.
Exactly. You're using the rules perfectly now. It really comes down to that one simple question. Can I say who is? If the answer is no, you're almost certainly looking for whom.
It's so much less scary when you break it down like that. I used to just guess and hope for the best. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, let's go with the apostrophe.
A lot of people do, but now you have the apostrophe thief and the hymn test to guide you.
My grammar toolkit is getting pretty full. I feel like I could actually explain this to someone else now.
That's the best way to learn. If you can explain it, you really know it.
Well, I'm ready to put this to the test. I think I need some more practice sentences to really make sure this is stuck in my brain for good.
I've got plenty of those ready. Let's see if we can catch you on any tricky ones. All right, Dan, I think it's time for the ultimate challenge, the lightning round. Are you ready to put everything we talked about into practice?
I think so. My coffee is kicked in and the apostrophe thief is at the front of my mind. Let's do it.
Okay, sentence number 1. Blank been eating my leftover pizza.
Ooh, a classic crime. Let's see. Who is been eating? No. Who has been eating? Yes, that works. So it's W-H-O-apostrophe-S because it's a contraction for who has.
Spot on. Remember, whose is a shortcut for both who is and who has. Okay, next one. Blank keys are these on the table.
Okay. Who is keys are these? No, definitely not. I'm looking for the owner of the keys. So that's whose, W-H-O-S-E.
You got it. Whose is the possessive form, used to ask about who owns or has something. How about a tricky one? Middle of the sentence. I met a woman, blank sister is a famous chef.
I met a woman who is sister. Nope. It's the woman's sister, possession, relationship, so it's W-H-O-S-E.
Perfect. And don't forget, we can use whose for things that aren't people too. Like, I visited a city, blank architecture is world famous.
Oh, right. Even though a city isn't a person, the architecture belongs to it in a way. So it's still whose, W-H-O-S-E. Man, I used to think you could only use who words for people, but whose is like the universal possessive for objects and places too.
It really is. It saves you from those clunky phrases like the architecture of which. Now, before we wrap up, I have to give you one final warning. Watch out for your phone.
You mean my sister's favorite weapon?
Exactly. Autocorrect is actually one of the biggest reasons people make these mistakes. It often sees the whose sound and just guesses, or it sees an S at the end of a word and automatically adds an apostrophe because it thinks you're being possessive.
That's so true. I've noticed my phone tries to turn its into its all the time. It's like the phone doesn't know that possessive pronouns like his, hers, theirs, and whose never ever take an apostrophe.
Exactly. If you can remember that the apostrophe S for possession only applies to nouns like Dan's or the dogs and not to pronouns, you'll be ahead of even many native speakers.
Wow, so I'm basically a grammar elite now?
You're getting there. So let's do a quick final recap for everyone listening. Whose, with the apostrophe, is always a contraction for who is or who has. Use the replacement test. If you can swap it for the full words, you need that apostrophe.
And whose, W-H-O-S-E, is for ownership, association, or relationships. No apostrophe allowed because it's a possessive pronoun. If you hear a noun right after the word, like whose book or whose car, that's a huge clue that you're dealing with possession.
And don't forget our fancy guest, whom. If the answer is him, the word is whom. But if you're just hanging out at a party, don't sweat it too much. Most people just use who in casual conversation.
I'm sticking with my sneakers grammar for the parties and saving the dress shoes for the boss.
That's a perfect plan. Well, that's all for today's episode of English Over Tea, Listen and Speak. We hope this cleared up the who's confusion for you and gave you some tools to feel more confident in your writing and speaking.
I definitely feel more confident. No more who is house for me.
Good to hear. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Maybe try writing a sentence in the comments using whose or whose so we can see what you've learned.
Yeah, let's see some examples. And if you have a friend who's, who is, struggling with English grammar, share this episode with them.
Great use of whose, Dan. Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep practicing, keep drinking your tea, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone. Happy writing.